Kara Shalom, welcome to our watercolor journey. Today we share some tips and techniques to paint this poppy field, so stick around. The materials used are listed in the description below. On the palette we have Cobalt Blue, Perylene Red, Imidazolone Lemon Yellow, Shadow Green, a premix of Cobalt Blue and Imi Lemon Yellow, and Scarlet Lake. The Canson paper is taped to a flat board. Heinrich uses Sennelier masking fluid and a Herend No. 2 masking brush to mask out the areas where he wants to add the poppies. You can use any old brush you have. He coated the brush with a thin layer of soap to help with the cleaning afterward. Try to use a natural soap or dishwashing liquid. Then dab the brush on a paper towel before you dip it into the masking fluid to avoid transferring soapy water to your container. You can dab the masking fluid randomly where you want to preserve the white of the paper for the poppies. You don't need to use a lot of fluid, a thin coating will do. Remember to rinse your brush thoroughly directly after use. Vary the shapes, sizes and directions of the flowers to make them more interesting. Allow the masking fluid to dry completely. It's always better to let it dry naturally. Don't use a hairdryer. It might make the fluid tacky. To test for dryness, touch the fluid lightly with your finger. It should feel a bit sticky, but shouldn't adhere to your finger. He uses a Princeton 1-inch mop to wet the entire paper. He uses the Raphael Petit Gris Pure No. 9 Squirrel brush to paint the sky. This brush holds enough water to cover the smaller sky area that he wants. He paints the sky only in the top third of the picture plane because the larger poppy field is the star of the show. He starts with Cobalt Blue and adds a touch of Scarlet Lake for variation in the sky color. The red also helps to make the sky a bit warmer in places and will harmonize with the red of the poppies in the field later. Then he picks up some shadow green without cleaning the brush and starts dabbing in the background trees and bushes. He's working wet on wet, and this helps to diffuse the paint to create a soft and distant middle ground. This also gives the bushes soft outlines, which helps to push them to the back. Hard edges tend to bring objects to the front. Adding the Imi yellow brings a bit of warmth to the foreground. Cool colors push objects to the back and warm colors pull them to the front. He rarely cleans the brush, which helps to create interesting color combinations on the paper. He uses the belly of the brush to pull up some green strokes to establish the first layer of the stems of the flowers. Vary the greens to create variety. The different greens also help to establish depth. The brush is a bit drier now, so the pigment is not diluted with extra water. This eliminates the possibility of creating blooms. Now he uses the tip of the brush to draw in more prominent stems and buds. The pigment is a bit stronger and the paper has dried somewhat, so the paint does not spread so much. Now he is basically working damp in damp, so you still won't get hard edges. These stems will dry back quite a lot, so they will not be prominent, but they will help to make the field look fuller. He adds a small amount of salt to create a bit of texture in the middle ground. Let the paper dry naturally. Remember, you still have masking fluid on it. Once the paper is dry, make sure to remove all the salt residue and then use a rubber cement eraser or your finger to remove the masking fluid. He uses the Rosemary No. 2 round sable to wet the bushes in the background. He adds another layer of greens to build the values. This helps to bring some bushes a bit forward and push others more to the back. The dark green will also form a perfect contrast to the red poppies. Here he also painted some areas wet on dry to create hard lines. The hard lines again help to bring the bushes to the front. Heinrich wasn't satisfied with this area, so he wanted to soften it a bit. However, the greens bled into the sky area. He saved it by wetting the sky completely and adding another layer. At this point, however, it almost seemed like a lost case because the water caused blooms in his newly painted bushes. Fortunately, he will salvage the situation, so keep watching to see how he saves the day. He wants to try out the Rosemary & Company No. 3 spotter. It's a very short brush with a fat belly. He uses it to paint the flowers, and he varies between the two reds, Scarlet Lake and Perylene Red, and he also adds a touch of the Imidazolone yellow here and there. He dabs some red into the flower and then adds a bit of water to thin the pigment. This helps to create variation in the flowers. You don't want all of them to look exactly the same. This exercise proves the importance of using the right brush for the task. The spotter is amazing for botanicals or precision work, but here it made a mess. Because of the short fat belly, it tends to blob the paint out at the first touch, delivering too much pigment at a time. A smaller spotter might have worked better, but Heinrich feels that he needs more practice with these brushes. He changes to the Rosemary & Co. No. 2 round again and decides to splatter some red to create a few small flowers. Splattering gives a bit more spontaneity and randomness to the flowers, and it prevents you from painting a monotonous field of similar looking poppies. He got a bit enthusiastic with the brush and landed a bright red dot in the greenery at the back. So this created the perfect opportunity to save the cauliflowers in the bushes as well. He dabs a generous helping of shadow green into the red to neutralize it, and then uses the same green to cover the blooms. He adds a touch of Imidazolone yellow just to brighten it up a bit. Then back to the poppies. Vary your approach. Sometimes you place a dot of water and then add paint. Other times you paint and then add water. You don't want to have perfect flowers. This is a loose painting, so keep it light and random. For the stems, he uses the Winsor & Newton Professional No. 1 rigger. Now he works wet on dry, so you will get hard lines here. These stems will stand out nicely against the fuzzy background. He varies the greens to create depth. The brush strokes here in the background are a lot looser. They are just an indication or a suggestion of the grasses and the poppies in the background. So don't be too detailed there, just keep it loose and light. To add the finishing touches, he uses white gouache from the tube to add highlights in the flowers. Would you please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, and let us know in the comments if you found these tips and techniques helpful. You are very welcome to share your paintings with us on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching. We hope to see you soon. Vaya con Dios.